The wind never stopped in Dry Creek Valley. It whistled through the broken fence posts, rustled the golden grass, and swept fine sand over the lonely ranch that stretched for miles with nothing but cattle, silence, and a man named Eli Turner. Eli was the kind of man who spoke more to his horses than to people. He'd built his ranch with his bare hands, years of sun cutting into his skin until it turned leather tough. But behind his hard eyes was a quiet sorrow, the kind that grew when days turned to years without laughter in the house. The only company he had was the ticking of an old clock and the creak of the rocking chair his mother used to sit in before she passed. Every evening he'd look out at the horizon as the sun dipped low and wonder if life would ever change for him. Until one morning the mail wagon came down the trail, a rare sight in these parts. The postman, an old fella named Hank, waved a dusty envelope from the saddle. "Letter for you, Turner," he called. Eli took it, surprised. "Ain't got folks to write me, Hank." "Looks like it's from Denver," the man said with a grin. "Maybe you do now." Inside, written in neat, careful handwriting, was a letter that changed everything. "Dear Mr. Turner, my name is Clara Mayfield. I saw your advertisement, seeking a wife through the Denver Matrimonial Agency. I am 26, widowed, and seeking a home where kindness and honesty matter more than riches. I'm not fancy or young, but I work hard and I want to belong somewhere again. If you are still looking, I would like to come to Dry Creek. I'm not afraid of ranch life. I can sew, cook, and care for a home. Sincerely, Clara." Eli read it 3 times. There was something gentle in those words, a tone that touched a part of him that had been asleep for years. He wasn't expecting beauty or excitement, just someone to end the long, empty days. He sent his reply that night under the flickering lamplight. "Miss Clara, you'll be welcome here. I can't promise much, only hard work and peace. If that suits you, I'll be waiting." He sealed it, and for the first time in years Eli found himself smiling. The waiting. Weeks passed. Eli mended fences, repaired the barn roof, even swept out the old house that had been gathering dust since his parents' time. He polished the old oak table, fixed the loose door hinges, and even bought a new kettle from town. "Never seen you this busy, Eli," said Hank one day as they loaded hay. "Figure a man ought to make a good impression," Eli muttered, half smiling. "Mail-order bride, huh?" Hank chuckled. "Hope she knows what she's signing up for. Ain't much out here but dust and cows." "She'll manage," Eli said quietly, though deep down he wondered, would she? He imagined her plain and kind, maybe a little tired from life. Someone like him, someone who didn't need words to understand silence. The arrival. The day Clara was due. The air felt different, heavy with the scent of coming rain. Eli stood near the gate, brushing the dust off his vest, his hat pulled low to hide the nervous flicker in his eyes. Then, through the shimmering heat, he saw the wagon appear. The horses slowed, wheels creaking as they neared the ranch. Eli's heart thudded. He straightened his shoulders and waited as the driver jumped down to help a lady off. When she stepped down, Eli froze. The woman before him wasn't plain or tired-looking at all. She was young, mid-20s, maybe, with hair like autumn wheat, eyes bright as the mountain sky, and a presence that didn't belong to this harsh land. Her dress was simple, but even the wind seemed to pause when it brushed past her. Eli swallowed hard. "Ma'am, you Clara Mayfield?" She smiled softly. "Yes, sir. You must be Mr. Turner." He nodded, still dazed. "Eli'll do fine. Welcome to Dry Creek." Inside the house, she looked around quietly. The floorboards creaked under her small boots. The curtains fluttered with the breeze, sunlight spilling through like gold dust. "It's peaceful," she said after a moment. "You've kept it nice." Eli rubbed the back of his neck. "Did my best. Ain't had company in a long while." Clara smiled again, that same calm, steady smile that made something in his chest tighten. "Then I'm honored to be here," she said. A quiet evening. That first night Eli sat by the fire, too nervous to speak much. Clara cooked beans and cornbread, humming softly, a sound so gentle it felt like the ranch itself was listening. When she set the plate before him, he hesitated. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she interrupted kindly. You've been alone a long time, haven't you? Eli looked into her eyes, and though her words were simple, something in her voice reached straight through his guard. Yeah, he admitted quietly. Too long. Outside, thunder rolled over the plains. Rain began to fall, pattering softly against the roof. The fire crackled, warm and golden between them. For the first time in years the house didn't feel empty. The storm. Later that night the wind howled, and rain hammered the windows. A loose shutter banged hard, and Eli jumped up to fix it. Stay inside, he called, pulling on his coat. But Clara followed him to the porch anyway, clutching the lantern. I can hold the light, she said over the wind. He tried to protest, but her determination made him smile despite the storm. Together they fought the wind, laughing as the rain soaked them both. By the time the shutter was secured, they stood breathless, dripping, and laughing in the stormlight. Eli looked at her, hair wet, eyes shining, and something in him cracked open. He realized then that she wasn't what he'd expected. She was more alive, more beautiful, more real. And she wasn't afraid of the storm. The realization. When they returned inside, Clara wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and set the kettle on. The scent of coffee filled the air. Eli sat by the fire, watching her quietly. I figured you'd be older, he admitted finally. She laughed softly. You thought you were getting an old widow, didn't you? Maybe, he said, smiling. Didn't expect someone like you to answer a rancher's ad. Her gaze softened. Maybe I needed the peace more than you needed the company. They sat in silence for a long moment, firelight flickering between them. The storm outside faded to a gentle drizzle. For the first time in years, Eli felt something stir in his chest. Not just hope, but fear too. Because Clara Mayfield wasn't the simple, plain woman he'd expected. She was the kind of woman who could break his heart without meaning to. Morning came clear and golden after the storm. The world smelled fresh, wet earth, sagebrush, and the faint sweetness of wildflowers that had sprung up overnight. Eli stepped onto the porch with his coffee mug, breathing in the cool air. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the same emptiness pressing against him. Inside, he heard soft movement, the sound of Clara humming again. She was already up, sleeves rolled, tending to breakfast as if she'd been part of the ranch her whole life. Morning, Eli said quietly, stepping in. She turned with a smile. Good morning, Mr. Turner. He raised an eyebrow, and she corrected herself with a small laugh. Eli, smells good, he said, glancing at the skillet. Just biscuits and eggs, she replied. But I found some dried apples in your cupboard, so I made a little pie too. Eli chuckled. You're spoiling me already. Clara smiled, but there was a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes, a shadow that came and went so quickly he wasn't sure he'd seen it. Settling in. Over the next few days, Clara settled into life on the ranch like she'd always belonged there. She mended torn shirts, scrubbed the porch, tended to the chickens, and even helped drive the cattle toward the watering hole. Hank stopped by once and nearly dropped his hat seeing her. Turner, he whispered after Clara went inside. You didn't tell me your mail-order bride was a looker. Half the men in town will be riding up here just to borrow sugar. Eli gave a gruff laugh. Ain't none of their business. But that night, when Clara asked him about the people in town, he hesitated. They're fine folks mostly. But I'd rather keep to myself. She looked at him with quiet understanding. That's all right. I didn't come here for crowds either. Still, he noticed how sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, her gaze lingered on the road leading away from the ranch, as if she was waiting for something or someone. The letter in the drawer. One afternoon, Eli returned from the field early. The sun was high, the air thick with the scent of sage and sweat. He pushed the door open and heard faint rustling, paper, hurriedly folded away. Clara jumped a little when she saw him. You're back early. Fence gave out sooner than I thought, he said, wiping his brow. Everything all right? Yes, of course, she said quickly, smiling, but her hands trembled as she poured him water. When she left the room, Eli noticed the drawer near her trunk slightly open, the edge of a letter sticking out. For a moment, he fought the urge to look. He didn't. He trusted her. But that night, as he lay awake listening to the coyotes howl in the distance, he wondered what kind of woman carried a secret written on fine paper all the way from Denver. A bond in silence. Days passed, and their rhythm grew steady. They spoke little, but their silences grew comfortable, filled with the soft sounds of work, wind, and the clatter of dishes in the evening. Sometimes, Eli caught Clara watching him as he worked, not with pity, but with a quiet curiosity, as though trying to learn who he really was. You work too hard, she told him once. Can't let the ranch fall apart. You could rest sometimes. The world won't end if you sit on the porch for a spell. He chuckled. Maybe, but I don't rightly know how anymore. Clara smiled sadly. Then maybe I'll remind you. That evening, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun sing behind the hills, the sky painted gold and crimson. She told him about the mountains near Denver, about her late husband, a kind man who died of fever 3 winters ago. Eli listened, saying little, but inside he felt a strange ache. Not jealousy. More like the wish that he'd known her before life had hurt her so deeply. The stranger. A week later, as Eli was shoeing a horse near the barn, a rider appeared on the trail, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed too fine for Dry Creek. He dismounted with practiced ease and called out, "Anyone home?" Eli wiped his hands on his apron and stepped forward. "You're on Turner Ranch. What can I do for you?" The man smiled, charming, confident, the kind of smile Eli didn't trust. "Name's Marcus Hale. I'm looking for a woman, Clara Mayfield. She was supposed to travel to Kansas with me. Heard she came this way." Eli's stomach turned cold. "You her kin?" Marcus laughed softly. "Not quite. Let's just say we had unfinished business." Before Eli could speak again, Clara stepped out of the house, pale as the morning fog. "Marcus," she whispered, voice trembling. He tipped his hat. "You left without saying goodbye, sweetheart. I had to ride half the territory to find you." Eli looked between them, his jaw tightening. "What's this about, Clara?" Clara's lips parted, but no words came. Her hands clutched the porch railing. Marcus's smile turned sharp. "Seems your little rancher doesn't know who he's sharing his supper table with." The truth revealed. That night, after Marcus rode off, promising to return, the ranch felt colder than it had in years. Eli sat by the fire, his jaw clenched. "Tell me," he said finally, his voice low but steady. "Who is he?" Clara stood near the window, the lamplight outlining her trembling hands. "He's someone from before. I thought I'd left that life behind." "What life?" "I wasn't lying when I said I was widowed," she said quickly. "But after my husband died, I took work singing in a Denver saloon to survive. Marcus was the owner. He wanted me to stay. Said he'd take care of me. But I didn't want that life. I wanted something real. So when I saw your advertisement, I ran." Eli's face softened slightly, but his voice stayed rough. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered. "But I thought if I could start over here, I wouldn't have to be that woman anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, then turned away, the firelight throwing his shadow across the wall. "I don't care what you were, Clara, but I care if trouble follows you here." Tears welled in her eyes. "It won't, I promise." But both of them knew promises couldn't stop a man like Marcus Hale. The return. 2 days later, Marcus returned, and this time, he didn't come alone. 3 rough-looking men rode behind him, dust rising from their horses like smoke. Eli saw them from the barn and reached for his rifle. Clara came running from the house, fear in her eyes. "Please, Eli, don't," she begged. "He won't hurt me." "Maybe not," Eli said, loading a shell. "But I ain't letting him take you." Marcus rode up slow, smirking. Now, no need for guns, Turner. I just came for what's mine." "She ain't yours," Eli growled. Marcus dismounted, hands raised mockingly. "Easy, cowboy. The lady came of her own accord once. I figure she can decide again." Clara stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. "Marcus, I'm not going back. I came here to start over." He laughed. "You think this place will change who you are? You're a saloon girl in a pretty dress. You don't belong out here." Eli's jaw tightened. "You best leave." Marcus's smirk faded. "Oh, what?" Eli cocked the rifle. "Or you'll wish you had." For a moment, the only sound was the wind. Then Marcus spat in the dust. "Fine, but this ain't over." He turned his horse sharply, and the men followed him out of the valley. After the dust settled, when they were gone, Clara sank to her knees, shaking. Eli lowered the rifle and knelt beside her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to bring trouble here." Eli's hand hesitated before resting gently on her shoulder. "You didn't. He did." She looked up at him, tears streaking her face. "You should send me away. It'd be safer." He shook his head slowly. "This ranch has been empty too long. I ain't letting it go quiet again." Clara's lip trembled. "Why? After everything?" Eli looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "Because maybe we both came here to find something we lost, and I ain't giving up now." A new beginning. The days that followed were tense, but strangely peaceful. Marcus never returned. Maybe the land itself had driven him off, or maybe the look in Eli's eyes had told him the truth, that Clara had found something stronger than fear. The ranch carried on. Clara planted flowers near the porch, and every evening, Eli found himself sitting beside her, watching them sway in the evening light. One night, as the stars spread wide over the valley, she spoke softly. "You still trust me, after all that?" Eli turned toward her, his voice low. "Trust ain't something you give easy out here, but you earned it." She smiled faintly. "And what if my past finds me again?" He looked out at the horizon, endless, quiet, and strong. "Then it'll have to get through me first." The promise. Weeks later, Hank stopped by again, and when he saw Clara tending the garden, he grinned. "Well, Turner, Looks like you got yourself a proper home now. Eli nodded, eyes soft as they rested on her. Reckon I do. As the sun dipped low, Clara brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat beside him on the porch. The wind had calmed, carrying only the scent of sage and the soft sound of crickets. You ever think about the future? She asked quietly. Eli took a long breath. Used to be I didn't. Now, yeah, I do. Clara smiled, setting her hand lightly over his. Then maybe the mail-order bride and the lonely rancher both got what they were looking for. He turned to her, eyes full of the warmth the plains had stolen from him long ago. Maybe, he said softly. Or maybe we both just stopped running. The stars shimmered above them, the ranch finally at peace. And for the first time since he'd built it, Eli Turner's home felt like it truly belonged. Not to the wind, not to the silence, but to 2 hearts that had found their way back to hope.